The adder, one of only 3 snake species native to Great Britain. Colonies can be found from the far north of Scotland all the way down to the south of England. They prefer drier, open habitats, such as woodland, heathland, and moorland. They're identifiable by a distinctive zigzag pattern that runs down their back, and their large, red eyes. The males tend to have more contrasting colours, with a darker pattern covering their silvery grey bodies, while the females tend to be more brown overall.
Adders are an interesting species to look at in terms of their role in the ecosystem. Lots of things will predate them. So things like mustelids, so stoats and weasels, polecats, also foxes, badgers, dogs and cats, and non-native game birds like pheasants. And also raptors will quite readily predate adders as well. But they're also a predator with things like voles and mice, frogs and toads, common lizards.
Public awareness of Britain's adders has been quite limited, which has led to some negative misconceptions about the species.
Common misconceptions about adders include the idea that they might be a threat to ourselves and our loved ones, but they're really unfounded because the species is so shy and really doesn't pose any threat to us if we just give it space and respect it.
Generally, they can sense people are coming, they can sense vibrations and movements, and they can taste and smell the air. If there's a threat nearby, they'll often just slither away, so they don't pose a threat.
Unfortunately, Britain's adder populations face an uncertain future.
So the Make the Adder Count study suggested that based on data from surveys across 260 odd sites, the majority of adder populations would be lost within the next decade or so. So I think unless urgent action is taken, they might be, on a landscape scale, functionally extinct within the next couple of decades. There might be some larger populations which remain, but they might be isolated, for example, in a landscape with little connectivity.
There are multiple contributing factors to this problem.
Climate change has got a massive effect on adders. They're coming out earlier and earlier every year, and they're going back underground later and later. They've got less time to rest up, so it's not good.
So threats to adders and their conservation include changes in land management practices, changes in land use, habitat fragmentation and the kind of genetic isolation of populations that comes with that. And another issue is predation by the non-native game birds, namely pheasants. Also, unfortunately, a big one is disturbance by people and their pets.
What they're relying when they come out of hibernation is build-up of energy from the sun. And if they don't get the sun and they get disturbed and they're using up energy, the males can't actually produce sperm, and therefore it will actually impact on the whole of the breeding season. Dog walkers are the biggest one because they disturb them. They've got to move and they're not sunbathing as long as they should be. So coming out of from basically middle of February right through until middle of May, that's all they're relying on is the sun, and they need to stay still and bask. So any disturbance can be real impact on them.
Despite the issues that British adders currently face, people are rising to the challenge and taking action. Signage is a simple way to help mitigate the risk of public disturbance.
A lot of people here are just out for a walk, walking the dog or what have you. We put up signage to alert people to adders, to ensure people put dogs on leads, so they do know that adders are present. But again, people aren't used to seeing adders, and it is a treat to see one. But it's difficult to know how people react and feel about adders.
There are also conservation projects dedicated to this issue.
So the North Burners National Landscape has been running the Adders Up project with support from the National Lottery Heritage Fund and Northumbria Water branch out, and it's running for the next couple of years, and it aims to achieve some positive outcomes for the species. So far we've had a year of the project, and in that time we've sort of trained over 30 volunteers, and we've also engaged with a few landowners to facilitate some habitat creation, so new hibernacular and things like that, some new interpretation and signage. And we've also just tried to attend as many events as we can to engage the public, and particularly kind of school groups and kids who haven't got to that stage where they have some of the misconceptions and fears about adders. So they're quite receptive to the species conservation message, which has been really, really rewarding. There are other adder conservation efforts and projects happening in the UK. There is a notable one in Wales. There's quite a lot of research work happening on Anglesey, where they've been doing some genetic studies similar to the ones that the Adders Up project is hosting in collaboration with Newcastle University at the moment. So that's whole genome sequencing to find out to the extent to which adder populations are isolated in the landscape or not, and how much they're mixing, and where we need to focus our kind of funding for habitat creation works to improve that connectivity. But yeah, so there's projects in Wales, there's a project in Cannock Chase National Landscape, and several of the other national landscapes have chosen the adder as a species of interest for them.
Surveying is also vital for our understanding of the species.
So I just walk around, stay about 6 meters away, try and get an overall photograph and a head shot of every single adder. And then I've got, I'm up to close on 30 plus adders in the last 5 years. I generally see about 12 or 13 a year, so they do move around. So by photographing the head pattern, you can see whether an adder has disappeared for the year, and then if it comes back, it's like our fingerprints. No two adders have got the same head scale pattern, so you can ID them. I've got given them all code names. None of them have got nice, cute, cuddly names or anything like that, so I don't get emotionally attached. I do various surveys. I do the adders, but it means you're out and you see other things. So in the adder habitat, there's loads of woodcocks around. I see you can get lizards in the same hibernation patch, and they hibernate in the same place as the adders. And it's just amazing to see an adder and a common lizard 5 meters apart. But because the adders don't eat when they come out of hibernation, the lizards know they're safe. It's just things, you see things that you wouldn't see if you, the old thing is if you don't buy the ticket, you can't win the prize. If you're not out in the countryside, you don't see things.
So if people want to get involved with the conservation of adders, which I hope they do, they can, if they're inside the national landscape, they can get in contact with us, engage with some of the survey events that we're running. We're also doing volunteer surveyor training events, and also just public engagement events, because even if people don't want to get out on the field doing surveys, raising awareness of the plight of the adder is really valuable as well. I'd also encourage people to get involved with citizen science recording, so submitting records to iRecord, iNaturalist, or just emailing us directly is really useful. It's all really helpful data that allows us to map changes in distribution over time, and it contributes to the conservation of the species. I would also encourage people who perhaps aren't in the national landscape to get in contact with a local amphibian and reptile group. You can get out there surveying and recording, and it really does help with the conservation of these species. Key ways that people can minimise their impact are giving adders space when they come across them. So if you find one, please just take a few steps back, enjoy it from a distance. You've seen a really scarce species, so you're very lucky. But also try to keep dogs on leads when you're out in the landscape, particularly in the spring and summer. It's a very small change to behaviour, but it has a really big impact on the places that you're visiting and that you love to go. But also it's a way to get involved and contribute to nature conservation work.
It would be a tragedy for this magical, misunderstood species to disappear from our ecosystem. The ongoing work from individuals and organisations is inspiring, but the adder's future is still not guaranteed. With greater action, we give them the best possible chance of retaining their home in the great British landscape.